G'day guys, and welcome to this business management lesson. In today's lesson, we're looking at key knowledge point 216. That is unit 2, area of study 1, and the 6th key knowledge point for this area of study. Today specifically, we're looking at technological and global issues that may affect decision making when establishing a business. And helpfully, this key knowledge point gives us a list of the different global issues and technological issues that you need to consider. Now, ultimately, what we're talking about when we're talking about planning considerations is anything that a business manager should consider before making decisions about how their business will operate. And the two issues we're specifically looking at today are the use of customer databases and establishing customer databases and establishing contacts with overseas suppliers and retailers. Now, in the last lesson, in 215, I gave you some specific examples about the legislation in Australia that requires that customer private data and employee private data is handled very carefully. We talked about the need for businesses to have privacy policies and procedures to ensure that data is protected. And certainly that is most applicable here too. If you are keeping an online database of customer data, then there is a chance you are not the only person who has access to it. If you consider that if you wrote down your customer data in a notebook and kept it in a safe on the premises of your business, it's probably accessible by fewer people than an online database, but it would be infinitely less convenient and useful. When it comes to establishing a customer database, you'll have all sorts of opportunities from having that data. Being able to look at what customers have bought from you in the past will help you identify perhaps targets for future promotions. If you run a scuba diving shop and you've had customers buy flippers or fins from you before, and you get in a new product that is a more effective, more efficient style of fin that will allow people to swim even faster with less energy, perhaps those are the customers that you might send an email to. If you are a florist and you are an online florist and you've got customers who regularly around Valentine's Day put in an order for some flowers to be delivered somewhere, you know which customers to be emailing around mid-February to remind them that this is a service you provide. Certainly, it's very, very useful for a business. However, there are bad faith actors out there in the world, people who would seek to access this customer data for nefarious purposes. Consider what kind of data you give to a business when you sign up for an account or you make a purchase with them. Certainly, if it's going to be delivered to your home, you've given them your name, your address, possibly your phone number, and you've given them your bank details. Just that data alone, if it was accessed by a nefarious dude, is enough to steal your identity or target you with future fraud possibilities. It's really, really important that you are compliant with all of the legislation that requires that you secure this data. You can probably think off the top of your head of some businesses in recent history that haven't been super compliant with that privacy legislation. Optus and Medibank Private are two that come to mind for me, that within the last few years have released huge volumes of customer data to the dark web, to just the public sphere. These businesses will face legal consequences, they'll pay fines, but also if they're viewed now by customers as being untrustworthy and unreliable, they're probably going to be less competitive in future. It speaks to the volume of this problem that services like Have I Been Owned or Pwned, depending on how you say that word, exist. This website was created in 2013 when this was already a problem globally. And what you could do with Have I Been Owned is put your email address into the website, hit the button, and it will show you all of the different data sets, all of the different online databases of customer data that have been accessed over time. And it will show you which businesses have released your data out into the public. And it will show you how many times that's happened. Certainly for someone as old as me, who's had their email address for about 20 years now, when I did this just the other day, I discovered that my personal data had been released 18 times. If you're watching this, odds are pretty good that you're a school student and you've probably had your email address for not as long, but it might be worth going to Google, visiting Have I Been Owned, and checking it out for yourself. And to conclude this lesson, overseas suppliers are just like domestic suppliers. If you're going to interact with overseas suppliers, consider what we talked about in Key Knowledge Point 214 with appropriate choice of suppliers. Do these suppliers offer what you want at a price you can afford, in qualities that satisfy you, in volumes that satisfy you, and will they be able to deliver them in a timeline that satisfies you? Consider for a second that maybe domestic suppliers can't give you one of these features. Maybe in Australia there just isn't enough rosewood, or there aren't enough sunflowers for your massive flower show. Perhaps you're a grocery giant, perhaps Coles or Woolworths, and there aren't enough growers of a certain type of fruit or vegetable in Australia, so you have to look to overseas suppliers. In some foreign markets too, the cost of living might be lower, the minimum wage might be lower, materials might be cheaper, or materials might be much higher quality. If you consider that historically China has had a lower cost of living, so wages in China have been lower, that sort of explains why a lot of things have been made in China. And certainly too, if you're going to be differentiating your business, if you're going to be implementing, if you're pursuing quality in your production, you might choose to seek leather from Italy or microchips from Japan, regions that are famed for the very high quality of those products. And finally, overseas retailers. Consider that it's possible, you're within your rights to do deals with overseas suppliers to sell your products on your behalf. This gives you some opportunities. This gives you some potential benefits. For businesses like Rip Curl, who sell board shorts and swimwear, well, those products sell very well in Australia during summer and in the lead up to summer, but in the winter months, they're less popular, we'll say. Fortunately for Rip Curl, when it's winter here, it's summer somewhere else. And businesses like Rip Curl can take advantage of that by doing deals with retailers internationally, like Walmart, to sell Rip Curl products in the regions where summer is occurring, so that Rip Curl is able to maintain sales year round. Now, of course, this is not growing or expanding your business. Rip Curl is not putting their own employees elsewhere in a different country. They're not doing manufacturing in a different country. This is just describing doing a deal with a retailer, an established retailer, to sell your products on your behalf. They'd probably take a percentage, but selling your products and giving 20% of the sale price to the retailer is probably better for your business than not making any sales by just keeping all your stuff here during winter. Certainly for businesses that their products have a life cycle. If you think about Apple with their iPhone, if you're going to buy an iPhone in Australia or America these days, you're probably looking at whatever the most recent version of the iPhone is. I think it might be the 14. But in other markets, in markets where perhaps people don't have access to as much money, Apple can sell off their old stock of older models at a cheaper price and continue to make a profit targeting communities in regions of the world where the sale price for the iPhone 14 would be too high. In summary for this key knowledge point, your business will be subject to global forces whether you like it or not. If you sell books in Australia, your biggest competitors are the bookdepository.com and Amazon. If you sell power tools, Amazon is a big competitor. Whether or not you're taking advantage of global opportunities, your competitors are. And certainly the fact that as soon as you put something online, it's subject to access from global actors, that's why Australian privacy laws are so strict. It's really important that you are open to taking actions to benefit from the opportunities that these things present for your business. However, it is really important too that you're very, very careful in how you go about doing that. That's all for today. See you next time.